Hello, everyone, and welcome to UGASports Rumors versus Facts. I am Blaine Gilmer here with Jed May. We hope to be joined by Trent Smallwood here in just a little while, but somebody that we do know we're going to be joined by is recent Georgia 2025 commit from Buford High School, Jaden Perlotty. He'll be on with us here in just a second. But, guys, we did want to open up and just say, obviously see the helmet here behind me, Mississippi State, just everybody here in the college football world and us, everybody just wanted to open up the show and saying, thoughts and prayers to the Leach family, everything that's going on. Nobody knows exactly the state of everything. We know, Jed, that it just doesn't sound good. And we obviously wanted to extend our, condolences, thoughts and prayers for that situation, everybody, everything that's going on right now.
Absolutely. And Blaine, I know you can relate when the past 20, 25 years growing up, for myself personally, following college football, like no one is more college football than Mike Leach. And you think of how his coaching tree, the air raid influence. I mean, the places he's been are Lubbock and Pullman and obviously Starkville now, Mississippi State, these last three stops. I mean, those are the places that make college football great, is small towns like that. And, definitely a really sad situation. We're all hoping for the best. And, like you said, prayers for the Leach family, the Mississippi State family, and everybody over there in Starkville.
Absolutely. And, in my life in particularly, I was talking with Jaden before, I used to be a high school football coached in the air raid system. Well, who was, one of the founders of the air raid, it was Mike Leach and Hal Mummy. They got that thing rolling. So he's had a just unbelievable impact on the college football world, and, hoping for a miracle, whatever's going on, but we'll see how everything pans out. But just wanted to extend those condolences and thoughts and prayers. And guys, everybody here in the YouTube chat, we appreciate you tuning in. You're going to get to hear from Jaden Perlotty here, but go ahead and drop where you're listening from. We'll throw those on the screen. And if you have questions for Jaden as we get going, but without further ado, guys, let me go ahead and change our background and bring on Mr. Perlotty. Jaden, appreciate you joining us here on UGASports Rumors versus Facts, man.
What's up, guys?
Hey, one of the newest dog commits out there, and only in the class of 2025, of course, at the powerhouse Buford High School. Jaden, I mean, Jed's going to have a bunch of questions for. I know that you've got to talk to him for a little while, but just kind of walk us through being so young, of course, being so talented, starting at a place like Buford, but getting to the point so early on. What kind of led you into this relationship with Georgia and made you know so early that, hey, it's time to be a Georgia Bulldog?
I mean, I always grew up a Georgia fan. I mean, that was my dream school since day one. And I just told my dad one day, I was like, well, wait when I know where I'm going. I mean, I'm not going anywhere else. It's where I want to be.
Absolutely. Jed?
Yeah, I mean, I guess following up on that, when kids that are so far out commit, people like, well, that's a long time for a commit to hold, and that kind of stuff. You sound like a guy that has no plans on this thing falling apart. Just take us through how you're going to approach recruiting these next couple of years, and possible visits and all that kind of stuff. What's the next couple of years going to look like for you from an off the field standpoint?
I mean, I don't know if I'll take any other visits anywhere else. I mean, I want to stay loyal, stay at my home.
Absolutely, though. That is something that I know the people here watching are excited about and stuff like that. Of course, you get these comments right here. Ask Jaden about Haynes. I'm sure you get asked about that all the time. So we'll save that for towards the end. But, Jaden, just kind of talk to us about what the pitch was from Georgia. Obviously, you've said that you grew up, Georgia was your dream school, but still they're going through this, you probably wouldn't have gone if their pitch, if their ideas for what, things would look like for you at the next level didn't match together. What was it that Georgia said to you about your game and how they see you at the next level that you enjoyed so much?
I mean, they think I can play anywhere. I mean, they haven't really seen anybody like this. I mean, they compared me to Isaiah Simmons. They say I'm so much like him. But, I mean, I'm a dog now. I'm proud of that.
Now, you mentioned that, in terms of the way that you guys play, it's a base 3-4 defense at Buford. You're an inside linebacker, but man, they will move you all around. I saw you on on TV and playing in person and this year, and man, it looked like you were a safety at sometimes, covering guys down the field, all that kind of stuff. Just talk to us about how you're used, and of course your size right now, and how Buford goes about utilizing that talent.
I mean, our defense is very versatile. I mean, we always have everybody plays every position. That's what makes us different than everybody else.
I got you. What do you like most about the game? I mean, is it technically as an inside linebacker? Do you, if it came down to it, is it plugging a hole on third and fourth and short, or do you get joy out of okay, this guy that thinks he's faster than me, I'm going to show him he's not, and I'm going to lock him down the field? Which one do you enjoy more?
Definitely plugging the hole. I mean, I think I feel a hole is really good, and I'm always in that battle.
Coach Schumann and Coach Smart, what was that like getting to know them?
I mean, they really relate to me. I mean, I love both of them, and when I went to the camp, they were on me about the little things, and I really paid close attention to that.
Jed, what you got, man?
Yeah, just speaking of coaches, Coach Uzo Deribe has been on staff for almost a year now, and we hear so much from these recruits about how he relates to them. He's talking about music, he's talking about shoes, he's all this kind of stuff. Just what's it been like getting to know him as a guy that's, I mean, Coach Schumann's not an old guy, and he's even so much younger than Coach Schumann. What's it been like getting to know Uzo Deribe?
I mean, it's been fun. I mean, he relates a lot to me. I mean, I love shoes. I love all that stuff, and that's what makes me love him.
All right, so you said that we got to open it up here. What's the favorite shoe? Like if you had your shoe that you get to, that's the one you got to pick, and you got to wear for a while. What are you rocking with? What's the favorite shoe you going with?
Definitely the Jordan 11 Concords. I mean, they go with everything.
Listen, man. He is definitely a sneakerhead over here. He's throwing this stuff out at us for sure. If anybody on the YouTube channel has a question for Jaden, you can go ahead and throw it in here. We'll be happy to ask him. But I know one thing that everybody wants to know about is those Buford teammates of yours, Jaden. It's no secret that the Georgia Buford pipeline has kind of been a little severed there for a few years. There hadn't been a whole lot of Bulldogs come out of Wolf country over there. So what are you going to be doing, and what's your approach to try to get KJ Bolden and Edric Houston guys with you? And I know you may not even have a fair chance with Justice, because you came on board a little too late to maybe even do something with that. But what is your going to be approach with guys like KJ and Edric?
I mean, I feel like KJ is really into Georgia. I mean, I feel like that's where he's going to go. I feel like what Edric is between Ohio State and Georgia. But I'm going to definitely get them both here.
Man, he's calling his shot. Listen to this. Absolutely. All right, so Mean Muggin Mutt wants to know, who's your favorite coach on the staff so far?
Coach Gummy, Montgomery Van Gorder. I mean, he's from Buford, and he's really one that put me on to Georgia. Yeah.
So what was it? Obviously, like you said, he's a former Buford Wolf himself. But what is it about Coach Gummy and kind of how he goes about things that you like so much?
I mean, he's checked on me every day. He always sends me game invites, make sure that I'm there on Saturday. And it's the little things that matter.
Absolutely. Jed, what you got, man?
Yeah, we got a few more over here. We got what do you enjoy doing in your free time? We got video games, ? What's free time for Jaden Perlotty look like?
Definitely working out. I mean, I don't have no free time.
I was about to say, by the size of that neck you got there in the screen, I don't think you're doing much video gaming. I mean, you can see Jed's probably a video gamer versus probably played some video games. But you're a little thicker up top there, man. You know what I'm saying? So, by the way, inside linebacker wise, guys with you see some guys go, big pads, all the different arm pads, all that kind of stuff. But it looks like you're out there pretty straightforward. You almost look, kind of clean cut out there. Do you like that look? Do you like just kind of, you almost look like it because of the length, you almost look like a DB out there when you're playing, even though you're inside linebacker. What's the philosophy for you when you're getting ready to go into a game, like look wise?
Keep it basic, not do too much. I feel like when I do too much in games, I don't play good. So I try to stay as light as I can and just wear gloves.
Absolutely. I had a coach one time. We were playing and people fumbled. They were wearing Under Armour sleeves and people fumbled the ball. He came in at halftime and cut everybody's Under Armour sleeves off. Didn't let him
wear sleeves.
Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy stuff. But all right, so here we got another question. What do you feel like you're good at, and what do you feel like you need to work on? So what's the strength of your game, and maybe what's something you need to work on in your game?
I feel like I need to work on my speed. I mean, if I can run at 6'4", 215, I'll be pretty good. I feel like I need to work on everything, covering, like, technique-wise. I need to work on my technique.
What's the most verified, whether it's 40 or 100 meter or whatever? What's the fastest verified time that you have?
I think my 100 time was like 11.8, but that's gonna drop this year.
Absolutely. Paul Duringer wants to know, what teammate do you enjoy playing with the most? So it doesn't even have to be somebody that Georgia's recruiting, but this is your opportunity to shout out somebody on the Buford team that you enjoy playing with.
I mean, definitely Tyshawn White and KJ Bowden. I mean, them two playing on defense right beside me. I mean, I love it. They show so much energy during the game, man. That's what I love to play around.
What is KJ sometimes I've been around it, he seems like he's a little quiet off the field around it. Is he totally different when he's in there with you guys at Buford?
Totally. I mean, he's not really quiet.
He's talking some smack, huh? Jed, what else we got for Jaden here before we get on with the vault questions and all that kind of stuff later on in the show?
And the question I got to know is what's the hair care routine looking like on a day-to-day basis? I mean, it's looking pretty fresh there. Like, what's the hair care routine? What goes into the afro looking good?
I mean, I just let it grow. I mean, it looks good coming out my helmet. The girls like it, so I just keep it.
Let me tell you something. I'm gonna go ahead and say, of prospect interviews, you're already ranking up there, man. You're calling your shot on getting guys in with you. You're saying the girls like the fro. I mean, there we go. It's a lot of stuff out here. John Adams wants to know, Jaden, what goals do you have in school? Do you, like, I guess, playing wise and off the field wise, like, what goals do you have in school? Do you have a plan laid out to get there? So, like, let's start with on the field first. What are some things that, obviously, now you're a guy, you're starting for one of the best high schools in the country. You're committed to Georgia. What are some goals that you have remaining for yourself and your team, I guess, going throughout the rest of high school?
Win the championship. I mean, we didn't win it this year. We played bad, but I feel like the next 2 years we'll win it.
Off the field, if let's say one day you go to college, you play and all that kind of stuff, and let's just, for argument sake, say that the NFL is not an option. One day, what do you want to do as a career? What interests you in terms of something away from football?
I don't even know, because my plan is to go to the league, so I'm gonna have to think about that.
There is no plan B. I hear you, absolutely.
There is no plan. As wise,
your future coach once said that one time in a press conference. You'll have to go look it up one time. Kirby said the plan is there is no plan. So you'll have to ask Kirby about that one day if you don't know what we're talking about. Jeremy Barbary wants to know, who do you want to beat the most once you get to UGA, and why is it Florida?
Well, who I want to beat the most is probably Alabama.
I hear you, man. This kid, I'm telling you, Jaden, like, you're gonna have your. By the way, go ahead and throw everybody out your handle and stuff on Twitter and Instagram. We need to put that up on the screen. In fact, while you're talking to Jed, I'll do that. But man, Jed, he's already going to become a Georgia legend, maybe off of this broadcast right here.
Yeah, and Jaden, obviously you got a ways to go before you sign or whatever. But obviously NIL is such a huge part of the conversation. Like, what does that sound like when you're talking to Georgia? I mean, how much does it come up? What did they say about it? That kind of stuff.
I mean, I'm not really even worried about the NIL. I mean, when I make it to the NFL, that's the real money. That money's gonna stay. So
it's Kirby Smart talking point, word for word. Just when you look at, I mean, do you remember watching the draft and seeing all like Trayvon Walker and all those guys go in the first round? Like, what goes through a young guy's mind when you're like, man, like this is what Georgia's doing now?
Why wouldn't you want to play for them when they're constantly putting guys in the first round? That's everything you ask for.
Absolutely. You know, and in terms of Georgia in particularly, obviously last year having the number 1 overall pick in Trayvon Walker, reports coming out today, Jaden, that they could have the number 1 overall pick in back-to-back years. People are saying Jalen Carter could end up being the number 1 pick this year. How impressed were you by him picking Jaden Daniels up like a rag doll and holding him up in the SEC championship game?
Yeah, he's a dog. I mean, I'd love to play by him. That changed my whole game.
Absolutely. Hey, having him to kind of keep those offensive linemen off of you, that probably does help out the linebackers behind him. And then I guess Jed, if you don't have any more questions, I guess my last question would be, what players, I guess, when you visited and stuff like that, have you gotten the chance to interact with any Georgia players, and who's kind of been maybe some of the coolest guys that you've gotten to talk to at this point?
I mean, I don't really talk to much of the players. I mean, I'm definitely, when I go back up there, it'll be different. But I kind of just spend a lot of time with the coaches trying to learn how they feel about their program.
I got you. Jed, you got anything before we let Jaden go here?
I guess last thing I ask a lot of guys is, what are you, when way down the road, when you end up signing, or I guess I know this was a Vault question, are you looking at things as, trying to enroll early when the time comes? Has that been a conversation yet?
I'll probably try to enroll first semester of my high school year.
Okay. So when that time comes, what are you bringing overall to this Georgia football program on and off the field?
A different mindset. I mean, like I'm saying, I'm versatile. I can play anywhere. I can fill up any position.
Absolutely. Well, you've heard it here. He's versatile. He's bringing KJ Bolden and Edric Houston with him, and he wants to beat Alabama. I think he's now the favorite Georgia recruit of all time by everybody that is watching this show. Jaden, we appreciate you so much, man. We're gonna end up answering the rest of the questions and talking about potentially some of your future teammates and stuff. But we appreciate you hopping on here and spending some time with us.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Hey, by the way, guys, go ahead and follow. I put his Twitter handle up there. It's at Jadon_Perlotty 5. So go follow him on Twitter. And Jaden, we'll catch you next time, man.
Thank y'all.
All right. Thank you. See you, Jaden. All right. So that was Jaden Perlotty right there. Jed, what do you kind of gather from you've taught to Mr. Perlotty here over the last couple of weeks as this decision was getting ready to get made and all this kind of stuff. So what's maybe struck you the most about that young man?
He's a focused dude, man. I mean, he's not, again, like we mentioned with him, he's got so far to go before he signs it, but he's not, he doesn't know if he's taking any more visits. He the NIL thing is like the NFL is the real money. I mean, that's some real maturity for a 15, 16-year-old guy to be able to look past that NIL stuff and see, like Kirby Smart always says, the NFL checks have got a lot more zeros on them. So just a really focused, mature. I mean, obviously he's in a high school program that's one of the most successful in the state and is one of the closest things to a college program you're going to get at that level. So makes a little bit of sense. But yeah, I mean, he's a guy that is going to be a key piece in this 25 class. I think he's already shown the goods to be a take, and he's only going to get better from here.
Absolutely. Him and Jabari Coleman, who's a running back out of I never can pronounce it right. It's the Institute. Yeah. Imhotep Institute out of Philadelphia. So a running back, they got a guy on the offensive side and the defensive side now. Of course, he's got teammates over there in the 24 class in KJ Bolden and Edric Houston that he's trying to get to. Interesting his perspective on KJ Bolden there, Jed. He came away saying he feels like Georgia's kind of the place where KJ's leaning right now. So that's something that people here on the people here on the YouTube channel kind of get first crack at hearing a teammate of KJ's kind of giving his perspective.
It's so weird that he said that because I've been led to believe that no one from Buford will ever come to Georgia as long as the sun burns in the sky. So, yeah, I mean, at 24 class and then 25 as well. I mean, 25 running back Justin Baker, Georgia's offered at Buford as well. Del McGee, remember Blaine, he was at that Buford Mill Creek game and he sees Justin Baker tear it up in the first half and, tells him he's got an offer as he's walking off the field for halftime. So there's so much talent in that Buford program. And it's, Georgia's obviously got Jaden Perlotty on board. And now once the hay is in the barn for this 23 class, they're really going to turn full attention to that 24 group of guys.
100%. It's there's a lot going on all the time for multiple classes when it comes to Georgia football recruiting. And now we're going to get to some of the vault questions. But first, I know we talked about earlier with Coach Leach. That's not the only reason. Of course, this Mississippi State helmet is relevant here. It's also Rara Thomas is in the transfer portal, Jed, and he made a visit this weekend to Athens. That came on the heels of Georgia going and visiting Rara before that visit, I guess you call it an official visit, took place. And Jed, it certainly sounds that Georgia's going in this thing with both barrels trying to grab the former Mississippi State Bulldog receiver.
Yeah, and there's been several receivers Georgia's looked at. There's McCollum. There's the Cephas guy from Kent State. But as you mentioned on the board earlier today, Blaine, it seems like all the attention as far as a guy actually being brought on board is focused on Rara Thomas. And there's been so much back and forth over this week with Georgia visiting him and then him coming to Athens. I mean, he was posting pictures on his Instagram of like you said, it was like an official visit. He got the photo shoot. He got all that kind of stuff. So he's target number one in the portal, looks like right now. And we don't think anything is imminent necessarily. He hasn't announced a date or whatever, but I think if he was committing, say tomorrow, I think it'd probably be Georgia. And then we'll see. I mean, we mentioned NIL with Jaden. That's obviously something that floats around with a lot of these transfer portal guys. So we'll see. But if Rara was committing tomorrow, I'd probably say it'd be Georgia.
And if that is the case, man, just talk about the job that Brian McClendon has done in terms of really turning over this wide receiver room just in the time that he's been there. Roddy reported today on the dog vent that and the vault that guys arriving early and starting bowl practice. 3 receivers on that list. Tyler Williams is going to be there. Yazid Haynes, and I think Anthony Evans was the other one that's going to be there on that list. I mean, tremendous speed, and then you add an experienced SEC guy on top of that young talent. In a guy like Rara Thomas, if that happens, they're also going after Dante Cephas, the Kent State receiver that was impressive earlier this year. So, Jed, that would be a tremendous haul in year one for Brian McClendon as he returns to this Georgia coaching staff.
Well, and don't forget Pierce Spurlin too. I mean, I actually spoke with Pierce earlier today for early enrollee series we're working on, and I said, "What's kind of the vision that Georgia's got for you?" And he's like, "Yeah, well, they kind of know I'm really a receiver trapped in a tight end's body a little bit, so they're gonna mold me into a tight end." So, and he's gonna be in Athens for bowl practices as well. So, I mean, and that's huge because receiver and quarterback obviously is such a huge chemistry thing, and learning how quarterbacks like certain routes run and all that kind of stuff. And you figure those guys will be getting, I mean, Stetson probably won't be throwing a ton of routes to those guys, which makes sense because Stetson won't be the quarterback next year. So whether it's Gunnar Stockton or Carson Beck, Brock Vandegrift, they'll be able to build chemistry with some of those guys going into next year and learn, audibles and the playbook and all that. I mean, early enrolling is huge for these guys to be able to be here for spring practice. Being here for bowl practice is even that much more of a leg up just because you're really thrown in the fire and you already go into spring kind of knowing how practices are run and things like that. So it's huge for those guys that are going to be here, especially at the skill positions because they're able to rotate in a little bit more than maybe, a lineman or something like that might be able to.
We got a question here before we get to the vault questions and stuff. P. Rich on YouTube, while we're talking about receivers, says, "Are we recruiting Dylan Bell's little brother? I believe his name's Micah Bell. He, I know that Georgia's recruiting, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think they might be recruiting him on the defensive side of the ball. P. Rich is saying he'd be a heck of a slot receiver, and Georgia hasn't had a really elusive receiver in a while. Well, I think Glad McConkey would beg to differ on that. He's pretty darn elusive. But what do you know about Micah Bell before we move on from that?
Yeah, Micah is committed to Notre Dame. Georgia offered, I want to say 2 or 3 weeks ago. And obviously, I mean, his brother has been recruiting him on social media pretty hard. I don't believe he's visited, at least not since he's gotten the offer. That could be a guy. Admittedly, I don't know if he's signing early or not. So that could be one to watch if he doesn't sign with Notre Dame in December. If he shows up on campus, maybe January or February, and then things, the wheels could really start moving there. But like you said, Blaine, Georgia's looking at him as a defensive back. They're also looking at Kyron Jones as a defensive back who, took an official visit this past weekend. So still a few names floating around out there for a potential another defensive back spot to add. But yeah, Micah Bell is definitely he's a really good looking player on film. I think Rivals has him in the top 250 in the country, I believe. So definitely a good player, just like his brother.
Yeah, this right here. Who's got more intel, y'all or Jeff's intel? Well, if you're going by word count, Jeff's got us beat tremendously. But information, who knows right there. But Jeff is rather loquacious with his writing for sure. Let's talk about official visits. Like you said, Jordan Hall was on an official visit. Big baby Jordan Hall. Georgia's trying to close out strong there. This past weekend, Kyron Jones, as you just mentioned, he was on an official visit. The NC State commit. This guy can absolutely fly. He's 4.3 40. Visited for the Georgia Tech game after getting an offer for a couple weeks. He told me that he had never really thought a whole lot about playing defense, but that changed pretty quickly. He said he was really warming up to it. Once Fran Brown and even Del McGee, just trying to tell him, hey, I'm a running backs coach, but man, you could have a special skill set on the defensive side of the ball with your speed and your versatility and things like that. So, Jed, I mean, it certainly sounds like coming out of those official visits, that Georgia's got great momentum with both. And I think personally for Jordan Hall, I don't know if Georgia could be sitting in any of a better position right now, 9 days out from signing day.
Yeah, and Georgia has looked like it's been leading for Jordan for a little while, and then it's kind of a Georgia-Florida battle now, and which ironically he was there for that game a couple months ago. It's interesting because remember back in June we talked about Georgia had that huge first weekend. All those guys took their official visits with Arch and Justice and Caleb Downs and all those guys. Now the reverse has happened with Jordan Hall because Florida got the official visit last weekend and Georgia gets him this weekend. So, Georgia liked where it stood after the Florida official even, and with visit highs and all that kind of stuff, you never know. And I would assume that feeling was only cemented this weekend. So like you said, he's signing on the 22nd, not the 21st, a day later. But I would pick Georgia unless something changes drastically in the next 9-10 days, whatever it is. I'd pick Georgia for Jordan Hall too.
Absolutely. So, and when it comes, then also two Georgia commits were also on official visits that we do need to highlight. Peyton Woodring, a kicker who, Jed, I've watched. I can't tell you how many times I've watched that field goal that he kicked because I'm just like looking at it. I'm like, just how far is that clear? He kicked a 60-yard field goal. This young man's from the state of Louisiana, and in a high school game, he kicked a 60-yarder this year. And I swear, I mean, I've looked at it over and over again, and it's not hyperbole. That thing, I don't know if there was some wind blowing at the back or what was going on, but that thing looked like it was good from 67, 68 yards. Yeah,
and high school too. I mean, there's a lot of different variables in a high school game. Like he could have, like that's a credit to the snapper and the holder for even give him that opportunity. But you see it in the NFL a lot. 60-yard field goals I don't think are as as stunning as they used to be. But to see a high school kid do that, because Blaine, you know just as well as I do, we go to a lot of high school games, and special teams often leaves a lot to be desired.
Well, not just that. The surface. I mean,
Yeah,
the surface
exactly.
is so important, and I mean it's near immaculate at these. Of course, domes. I mean, it's turf. It's perfect, but in on these natural surfaces, whether it's Power 5 colleges or NFL stadiums, if they're natural surface, I mean the field is just cut so tight and near immaculate. Like I said, at a high school field, I mean, sometimes there's holes and things everywhere. I mean, you don't know what the surface is going to be like. So just to be able to drill one from that far away, Georgia is really getting quite the leg with Peyton Woodring. And then of course, Jed, also Monroe Freeling was there, 6'7", 280 some odd pounds, depending on what he ate for breakfast that morning. Monroe Freeland, offensive tackle, that Stacy Searles has landed in this class. He was on an official visit, so you'd have to think that he was, as a longtime commit to Georgia, was doing his part to kind of work on big baby Jordan Hall and of course Kyron Jones.
Absolutely, and I actually interviewed Monroe a little bit ago as well. And listen, that guy is I mean, we talk a lot about Jamal Jarrett being a great personality. Monroe Freeling is quite the character as well. He's a big food guy. We were talking about food for a while. He does yoga before games. He's a big basketball star up there around Charleston. So he's that story will be coming out later this week. But in more serious matters, he was telling me, because I asked him about his height, because the Rivals account has him listed at like 274, I think. And I asked him about his weight, and he said, well, I fluctuated during the year. I had the flu. I lost a bunch of weight. When he weighed in at Georgia last time he was there, he weighed in at 302. And so now he thinks he's slimmed down to about 290, 295. So obviously the staff is still going to, he said he's still focused on, bulking up and adding some weight once he gets to campus. But that journey isn't quite as far as it looks like based on the measurements we've got him at. So when you think about a guy coming in at 6'7", 295, that's a little bit different feeling than 6'7", 275 coming in as an offensive lineman. So, great dude. And yeah, another early enrollee that's, he's ready to get to Athens and try to carve out a spot in that offensive line rotation.
Well, and I think you're going to see obviously some opportunity there in that offensive line next year. I mean, I know Marius Mims comes back and is basically a pseudo starter this year. I mean, he rotates a lot, but Warren McClendon's going to be gone at the right tackle spot. All indications are that Roderick Jones will be moving on to the NFL, as some people are pegging him as a potential first round draft pick. Even in the middle of that offensive line, Cedric Von Prawn could likely be gone as well. So there's going to be opportunity for people on that Georgia offensive line, and that's why it's so crucial. Kirby likes to bring in, if at all possible, 5, sometimes even 6 guys, on that offensive line each class. That's what he would ideally like to do. They added another one here recently with Merriweather out of Brunswick. So it's going to be interesting. Now, before we'll touch on this on the Vault questions real quick, a bunch of transfer portal and stuff like that. But before we do that, we do have to say there's one person that we have to talk about that I put in the war room today, Damon Wilson. It seems there's been so many turns in this recruitment, Jed. It's up, it's down, it's this way, it's that way. But it certainly seems, not only from what we're hearing, but what our counterparts at the Rivals Ohio State website certainly seems to think that Georgia has a lot of momentum here with the five-star edge rusher out of Venice, Florida.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking about this recruitment is tiring, but it's been Georgia and Ohio State for a couple months now. I think one of the Vault questions alluded to Keon Keeley going to Alabama and how that affects things. Alabama hasn't been a serious player in this thing for a little bit, but I mean, this week was crucial because this week Ohio State and Georgia went in home with Mr. Wilson. Coming out of that, like you said, I think Georgia really likes where it sits. Things are a little he's going a little quiet this week. State championship games this week. He's focusing on that, and then there's going to be a huge push these last few days. But it's we talked about Chidera Uzo-Diribe with Perlotte earlier. He's done a great job in this recruitment with Damon Wilson because Ohio State's got a lot of pedigree as far as defensive ends going in the NFL, and the Chase Young and the Bosa brothers, and they got Zach Harrison up there now. And there's a lot of reasons for a guy to go to Ohio State if you're a defensive end. And Georgia has done a great job on selling this vision for Damon Wilson, what they could do for him in Athens. There's every school that looks like they're going to lose on a guy throws NIL out there. I don't think that's the main selling point for Georgia and Damon Wilson. A guy of his caliber, it's going to come up probably, but I don't think Georgia's throwing bags around like some of their SEC counterparts. But
listen, I know for 100% fact that if people are out there saying that Georgia is getting somebody because of a overwhelming, just generous NIL offer, then that's just false, because there's an approach that Georgia has to that, and it's all about the culture that Kirby's built, and also managing a roster, because Jed, there's guys that have been at Georgia, have put in the blood, sweat and tears, have proven themselves on the playing ground, and Kirby's going to go out and get the Classic City Collective or boosters or whoever to just make this young man an offer that the older guys don't even have close to. That's just not the case, and that's not how Georgia, I think, wants to go about it. Now, 5 years from now, when everybody comes out and has had NIL deals and all that kind of stuff, then it may be a little bit different. But I think right now that's certainly not going to be the case. But like Jordan Hall, I do believe that Georgia sits very well with Damon Wilson. And then the last thing, and we're going to fly through our vault questions here. Put a war room out saying that today that Justice Haynes and Caleb Downs are definitely still being recruited by other schools. And that's the extent that I went to. It's not that I'm saying that a flip is imminent for either one of them, or that they're going to end up leaving against Alabama. But I do know that Ohio State was at the state championship game for Caleb Downs and definitely going hard after him. There's a lot of smoke there. A lot of people in that Mill Creek community kind of have a feel that there's something going on there. And then also too, we knew about the in-home visit for Justice Haynes with Georgia. We knew about it last week. We were asked not to kind of put that out there by the parties involved, and sometimes you got to respect that. But there's been real momentum behind the scenes of Georgia being able to at least talk to and have the Haynes family listen to the pitch, Jed, and that's what we were communicating this morning. Does he ultimately end up leaving Alabama? Publicly, at least, he's saying all the things that he's going to end up at Alabama and all that. But I can assure you that Georgia is not giving up really on either one, but they're definitely not giving up on Haynes. And Ohio State is also Ohio State came and did it in home with Justice, so Ohio State is not giving up on either one either.
Yeah, and listen, I'll be the first one to put my hand up and say when Justice committed to Alabama in July or August, whenever it was, I was like, I don't see him flipping. I thought it was a shut case. I thought with that much publicity around it and the spurning of the legacy and all the hoopla around it, that was it. I don't feel that way anymore. I think, like you said, there's real work being done. Georgia's never given up. I'm not predicting a flip. I don't even know if I would say it was 50-50, but what I am saying is Georgia's done as much as it can do in this recruitment to stay alive, to remain a factor. Does Justice Haynes sign with Alabama next week? I don't know. I mean, I'm not predicting that he won't.
That's what he's saying.
That's what he says. Yeah. And all you can do is go with what he says. But I mean, it's a credit to Del McGee that to keep trying and remain a factor and actually build some positive momentum here when I thought there was pretty much none to be had. So
yeah, I mean, if you'd asked me a few days ago, maybe a week ago, I would have said it was getting, close to being an imminent deal. But in terms of a flip, but that's listen, there's all kinds of people that are attached to these things. Ultimately, it's the young man's decision. So we'll see what ends up happening on Sunday. He did say that if a dream or the Lord or something spoke to him and told him to do different, then he would do different. So who knows? Maybe the Lord speaks to Justice about his allegiance to Alabama before signing day. So we will see on that. But now, without further ado, let's go ahead and get to our vault question. These vault questions are brought to you by Turner Wooden Smith Insurance and Auto Owners Insurance. They're our partners here on the show. If you need car insurance, home insurance, life insurance, business insurance, then Turner Wooden Smith Insurance is a agency that's been around over 100 years, guys. They can help you out with customer service needs. I know because my family uses them, and it's they do a great job helping us out. Auto owners, obviously a great policy holder, and I know that as well firsthand because I have a policy with them, and they've always taken care of us. So they'll take care of you as well. So you can find their websites in the description. Also, while you're at it and you're on here, we got a lot of people in here. Go ahead and hit the like button, hit subscribe, turn on notifications. And now, Jed, let's go ahead and get to these vault questions. So we got one from John Adams, 88.
Yeah, Marshawn. I said MarShawn Llyod, not Marshawn Lynch. As great as he would be to cover. Marshawn Lynch, South Carolina running back, seems more the same tools that Georgia has and depth on the team. He looks like a fighter and tough as nails. So, Blaine, I think the gist of the question, Marshawn Llyod, South Carolina, is Georgia going to pursue? What's the smoke there? I know you had a note on him on the vault earlier today.
Yeah, so he put out this ominous tweet last night, Jed, where he was like, "Oh, you got to look out for yourself and all that." Well, everybody knows what's coming when that happens. And one of the people who immediately liked it was Fran Brown up there. I put that post out there. Georgia's defensive back coach. Obviously, Fran probably, I would say, covered that area when Marshawn was coming out. He's up New Jersey and he's up from the Maryland area up there, so that Mid-Atlantic area. So probably familiar with him. So that's probably one reason why. But listen, Del McGee loved Marshawn Lynch coming out of high school. That Georgia was Marshawn Lynch. Here I am again. We're not talking about Marshawn Lynch. Marshawn Llyod coming out of high school. And that Georgia was kind of in it with the end all the way to the end with him. Also, I do know, and I can say with 100% certainty that a couple of weeks ago when Georgia's kind of looking out and planning, there were some conversations like, well, who are some guys that Georgia would be interested in Porter? And I know that Marshawn Lynch's name can't. I'm just going to call him Marshawn because I keep saying Marshawn Lynch, and he is not beast mode. He looks like beast mode half the time, but it's Marshawn Llyod. I apologize for that. Marshawn Llyod was a name that was definitely discussed as somebody that, hey, if that happens, that's somebody that Georgia has to look at. So I wouldn't be surprised. There's already rumors, at least on the South Carolina board, Jed, that Maryland, his home school, could be ponying up a big NIL package and stuff like that to maybe come after him. So you never know how it's going to go, but I at least expect Georgia to take a hard look at Marshawn Llyod right here.
Yeah, reach out and see if you can get him on campus. And I don't know exactly what his time frame is for making a decision or anything, but we'll see. Georgia could, I guess, theoretically pay him a visit like they did with Rara Thomas, if that could be worked out. So, we've been talking about for weeks. It seems like Justice Haynes with the portal at running back. And at the time, we were like, well, we don't know what the portal is going to look like. Now we know. Marshawn Llyod is, when you look at running back, Marshawn Llyod is probably the guy that they've got circled at the running back position in the portal. So we'll see.
Yep. All right. Darth Janus here says, what are some recruiting names that aren't talked about much, but every Dog fan should know coming into signing day? I think that most people know the ones that we mentioned earlier with Jordan Hall, Damon Wilson, of course. Everybody wants to know, like we've just mentioned about Haynes and Downs, but I think two guys that you got to keep an eye on, Jed, would be Sydir Mitchell and Chase Besantis. I think those are two guys that Georgia's doing some behind the scenes work trying to. They were really close with them the first couple of times. One ended up at Texas and one at Texas A&M, and I don't think Georgia's really stopped pursuing either one.
Yeah, Mitchell welcomed about the whole Georgia coaching staff for in-home visits over a span of 2 or 3 days last week. So Georgia's going after him. And then Besantis, he's an interesting guy because a lot of what's going on there depends on what's going on with Texas A&M and Steve Addazio. Does he stay? Does Besantis sign early? Does he not? Does he stick with Texas A&M? Does he not? A lot. There's still a lot floating around there. I personally, I would think if Addazio was going to be fired, he would have been already since the season ended 2 weeks ago. But that's a name to keep an eye on if he shows up on campus at some point. Of course, if he signs next week, it doesn't really matter. But those are two. But that's the beauty of the site, Blaine, is that every name that you need to know, you probably know it if you're a member of the UGA Sports Vault. So a little shameless plug there. But yeah, it's interesting, Blaine, and I don't know if you agree with me. Last signing day, it seemed like there was a lot more unresolved things going into signing day compared to this year. Is that
a lot of the haze in the barn, so to speak. I really think Georgia's going to have a large portion of everything wrapped up here. There's going to be a few big fish out there that they're going to try to land, but then again, Kirby Smart is notorious for pulling a big flip out at the last second there in most of his classes and things along that line, or even a under the radar person like Ladd McConkey coming on late like he did a couple years ago. So I'm sure there'll be somebody interesting that pops up. I got another question here from Darth Janus. Jed.
Yeah, I love it. That's a Star Wars reference. I love it. Is there any update on DeAndre Moore with Scott Satterfield leaving Louisville, and any portal receiver names to watch?
I mean, Rara Thomas, Des Walker, Dante Cephas, all those guys that we've kind of talked about already. 2 Kent State guys and a Mississippi State player. Both of those or all 3 of those names are some you need to look out for. And then in terms of DeAndre Moore, I know that Braum coming to Louisville is a really good hire for them, Jed, coming back home. So it'll be interesting to see how he kind of clicks with the staff there. But I think, Georgia and Texas are both in a really good shot to try to make a late run at Moore here.
Yeah. The interesting thing is like, let's talk about Satterfield leaving Louisville. It kind of seemed like there was a pretty decent chance he was going to flip, even with Satterfield staying. So I don't know if it affects it too much. I think it's Georgia and Texas battling. Obviously, Georgia has since landed Anthony Evans. Since it was really both of those guys looking at as flip targets. So, we'll see. I think it's kind of status quo as it's the same as it's been in the past week or so with Georgia and Texas. I don't know that Satterfield leaving throws too much of a wrench into things is kind of the point of the question there.
No doubt. Green. No, hold on. That's sorry. I didn't get that one out from last time. Here we go. We got Steven 30.
Yeah, how does Georgia feel about Justice Haynes? Well, the good news is we haven't talked about Justice Haynes at all. So, Blaine, how does Georgia feel?
Didn't even realize. Yeah, we've already kind of talked about that one. I'll save everybody's time right there. I think obviously Georgia's continuing to pursue. They did do an in-home visit last week. That did not feel like, quote, just part of the process from what I understand. So we'll see. There's been a lot. I'll say there's been a lot more smoke behind the scenes and people you talk to that are directly involved in this thing than some of the quotes that are being put out there. That's all I'll say on that. Like I said, does he flip? Who knows? But I know that there has been real effort and real momentum that is not ceased there on Georgia's end. Let's see. We've already answered Keely to Bama and Damon Wilson. All right, shown up 253 says, when it comes to player evaluation, is there a position that's easier than others, or does it depend? Jed, in terms of evaluating talent and stuff, is there, through your talks with anybody or what you've seen, is there any one position that you think is maybe the easiest to say, okay, that's the real deal there?
I mean, I'm not smart enough to evaluate players anyway. I would think it would be maybe like defensive lineman. Like you look at a guy like a Samuel Mpemba, and you're like, man, that's what Rowdy always says. You take your mom to the game and say, who's the best player out here? A lot of times those are the defensive end, outside linebacker looking types. You think of a Gabriel Harris, you think of a Sam Mpemba, Damon Wilson, perfect example. So I think something like that, where a guy's athleticism is able to just jump off the page screaming at you.
I agree with that.
Like that too.
No, I agree with that. I think Smile Munden was somebody, when I saw in high school, I was like, you could just see the freakish build and athleticism right there. But offensively, I think a position that is the easiest to kind of evaluate for me is a true outside wide receiver. Do they run routes, with a purpose? Are they good in and out of breaks? I mean, do they have good hands? Like, all these things you can clearly see. There's a lot of nuance and technique when it comes to in the trenches and stuff like that. And then quarterbacks, how are they being coached? What kind of offense are they being told to run? All that kind of stuff. Do they have some bad habits they have to break? Quarterback is very subjective. But I feel like when you're talking about a true dog on the outside, somebody like a George Pickens or somebody along those lines, you can really tell, okay, this guy is a upper echelon receiver. Now, I will say that I think lends credit to Georgia's staff, because they haven't got some of those guys, and they've been able to find those traits in some lower recruited type guys, a la Ladd McConkey, a la even Dylan Bell, who's done some good things as a freshman. So I think Georgia's kind of done a really, really good job, overcoming not getting some of those guys, and they're trying to rectify that in these upcoming classes. And I think they have, Jed, by the way, with Yazeed Haynes, Anthony Evans, Tyler Williams, Raymond Cottrell. You mentioned Pierce Spurlin, Lawson Lucky. I mean, they've got a bunch of, and listen, as far as a name that doesn't get talked about enough, Deuce Robinson, I think Georgia's still firmly in the mix with Deuce, and he's basically half wide receiver as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how that shakes out. But I think Georgia's evaluation, regardless of it's a tough position or easy position, has been spot on. Our last question here, Jed.
Yeah, based on what you guys are hearing behind the scenes, what are the chances both Caleb Downs and Justice Haynes play together at the collegiate level?
I mean, I would say right now, you got to make it. If you're an odds making, you got to make it a minus money, odd. You got to, in terms of they're the favorite right there. But with Alabama, them both being committed, but it does appear that Ohio State's making a real run at Caleb Downs as it comes down the stretch here. At least that's what we're hearing. So guys, that's all of our vault questions. If you do have a YouTube question, we'll take a couple right here. We got John Adams says, how many older coaches out there than Nick Saban at 71? Nick Saban would be 78 if Juju were to go there through in 3 years. So yeah, Nick Saban's a little bit older. I don't know, but the man stays in shape, so we'll see. Jeff Hightoff says, what's the latest on Deuce? I think Georgia's done all they can do at this point. Now they're just going to keep in touch with him right up to early signing day. I mean, I guess we're 100% sure he is signing on early signing day. I'm not positive on that.
In February.
He's signing in February. Okay, yes, since he's signing in February, then there's still a chance that he could make it out for another visit over there for sure. And I think that's all we do have one the freaky Harbor. I think he's talking about Nichols Harbor is not going to make a visit. I think South Carolina is making a big run there. There's some other schools over there on the Atlantic coast over there that he's visiting.
We need to someone needs to take a picture of a graphic that has 5-star Nicholas Harbor and then a top schools list of South Carolina, Maryland, Michigan. It's such a unique recruitment because there's the track angle. He could play edge or tight end. There's so many different variables involved there. Georgia was in his top 7. He wasn't going to visit Athens. He announced he was going to take an official visit to Athens, and now we were checking around this afternoon. He is in fact not visiting Athens this weekend. So I don't know if he's signing early or not, but if I was a Georgia fan, I wouldn't worry about it too much either way.
Cody Taylor asked, is it true that Julian Lewis, I think he meant loves, not loves, loves Georgia and wants to be in Athens? It is 100% true that he really enjoys Athens. I've talked to him and to his father several times about Athens. I mean, they really enjoy the environment. They enjoy the coaching staff a lot. I will say this. They also enjoy Buster Faulkner. And Buster Faulkner just took the offensive coordinator job at Georgia Tech. I'm not saying that would influence, Juju Lewis at this point. But listen, he's just a freshman. He just put up the state championship game record with 531 passing yards in the state championship game as a freshman, and his team still lost by a large margin. So he did his part. So that defense needs to come on, Carrollton defense, pick it up over there. But the freshman quarterback was insane. He's been to Georgia, I would say, Jed, probably close to 10 times between his eighth and ninth grade year. Kirby Smart, I put up a picture in our group chat. Kirby Smart has been recruiting Julian Lewis since he was a second grader. He had a picture over there with him at a camp at Alabama. So they go back a long way. And I think Julian Lewis is definitely – Georgia's going to be in it with Julian Lewis till the end, but he's the most talented high school quarterback I've seen since Deshaun Watson in person. And I think Georgia's going to treat this recruitment a lot differently than that Georgia staff did Deshaun Watson's.
Yeah, and the thing too, you mentioned how often he's been in Athens. It's not like Carrollton is right next door. Carrollton's closer probably to Auburn than Athens. Tuscaloosa's not far. I mean, he's been to Athens a lot. So yeah, I mean, that's I don't know a ton of names in the 26 class yet, but I mean, that's a kid that's just, I mean, he's built. And Blaine, you've seen him play a couple times. I hadn't seen him play on TV or in person until the state championship game this weekend. And I was just, I mean, the throws he's making on the run, I mean, he's rolling out to his right and just and dropping dimes into these kids. I mean, that one touchdown in the back of the end zone is just like, it's.
Listen, I played. I grew up. I played the quarterback position. Obviously, I was nowhere near as talented as any of these guys we're talking about. But I grew up. I played the quarterback position. I studied the quarterback position. I coached the quarterback position. He is the most natural passer of the football that I've seen, other than Deshaun Watson. Period. In high school, especially at his age, everything is out in front of that young man, and I'm sure Georgia will pull out all the stops trying to recruit him. But you talk about NIL, the evaluation for a guy like Julian Lewis. I mean, literally, this young man, since he was in elementary school, has had tens of thousands of followers on social media and stuff like that.
Instagram and.
Yeah, it's going to be.
I remember seeing him before his freshman year. He's like, "Yeah, I've got these accounts that are impersonating me." Like, how many high school freshmen do you know that are famous enough to have accounts impersonating him? I mean, that's the kind of star level we're talking about here. So
it is going to be insane. This show has been insane because of you guys. We appreciate you guys joining in. If you didn't catch the early part of it, we had an interview with Jaden Perlotty, the recent Georgia commit in the class of 2025 from Buford High School, inside linebacker. So make sure to go back and check that out. And we will catch you guys, of course, each and every Monday night. We go live, just like Nitro used to do back in the day, Andy Stowe. So I hope you're watching it here. We're live, coming in live and hot on Monday nights with the Georgia Recruiting Talk. So the show, as always, is presented by Turner Wood & Smith Insurance and Auto Owners Insurance. Make sure to like, subscribe, turn on notifications. And for my man, Jed May, I'm Blaine Gilmer. We will catch you next time on UGA Sports Rumors versus Facts.